We're here at Straub Technologies Day with Jeff Havens from Silver Seal, and we're going to talk about some of the product offerings that Silver Seal and Straub Technologies offer the industry on the LS-based engines. Jeff, can you tell us how your family's background and how you all, as far as with your connections up in Detroit and stuff, got into this?
We started out, my grandfather started out in the late 50s in Detroit as a jobbing machine shop. Back then they carried everything from paints to nuts to bolts, and in the back room they do a lot of cylinder head work. And he patented, developed, and designed the valve spring insert, which has now become a staple in the automotive aftermarket as far as cylinder head rebuilding goes. And with that connection, obviously we got a lot of interest from the OEs over time, and you know, over the years we've supplied OEs not every year but almost every year, either for parts and service, performance, our valve spring inserts, which has really opened up a lot of doors to us in the Detroit area with sourcing product for the automotive aftermarket.
So with you being the third generation, you can say you all got decades of contacts in the Detroit, Michigan, Ohio area.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about the LS market and some of the products that you're able to source and provide to the aftermarket performance world.
As you all know, the LS market has went crazy in the last few years. So we've went to a lot of our customers out in the field and asked, what are you guys looking for? What do you need? And you know, a lot of these bolts are specific to General Motors. So we went out and sourced all the hard to find stuff that you'd have to go to the dealer and source.
And with the LS platform, since it's a torque to yield style bolt, unlike the old small block and big block Chevrolet, you have to replace every bolt in the LS market with anything that you disassemble of this thing, correct?
Yep, GM did a thing where just about every single bolt on an LS engine is a torque to yield bolt, even down to some of the timing cover bolts and even some of the coil bolts, believe it or not.
Now, I think you had told me a story once about a large PER that was actually trying to reuse some of the product and some issues that they were having, right?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with that one because these oil galley plugs, GM had engineered a special crush washer on the inside of it. And what was happening is when the PER was running these in their hot tank, the actual crush washer, which you can barely see on the inside of the plug, was falling out.
So even with the camshaft change with an LS motor, you've got to remove the cylinder heads. So that means you've got to replace the head bolts and stuff. And currently I know we sell thousands of head bolts every year.
Oh, yes.
And so it's not just thousands of camshafts and stuff being sold. You have to replace all those bolts. And Silver Seal, Straub Technologies, we are the source for that kind of stuff. And we're going to go through some of this stuff that we've got and some of the unique product that we can that you all can get from the companies and source through us for your LS projects. Jeff, let's take this coil for example. This is a GM coil, but it's a very special GM coil, correct?
That's correct. It's a 140,000 megajoule coil, and it's the highest output coil for the LS in the marketplace today.
Okay, all right. What about this lifter guide? What can you tell us about this lifter guide?
This is an OEM GM lifter guide, and you can tell by the part number stamped in it. There's a lot of lifter guides out there in the market. You can go on eBay today and find lifter guides, okay? The problem is those are knockoffs, okay? And you're gonna have problems with those, and we've already had the GM engineers test those. You will find that the plastics they use, they get soft and they do not have the supports on the inside of the lifter guide to take the abuse the LS gives to it.
And the other thing too is it has the OEM Delphi part number right in the center, so you know if you're getting an actual GM part. And you can see here easily it's got the GM Delphi part on the plastic piece. These little gaskets seem to burn out quite a bit here on the off steam vent.
Absolutely, yep. That's something everyone forgets about when they go back to put their motor together. They're like, where'd we put those?
And this little dog bone, we sell a few thousand of those a year, don't we?
Absolutely. Another great hard to find product that you need for the LS.
And I know at about 100,000 miles this plastic gets fairly brittle and stuff, and this thing goes bad and can cause some oil pressure issues. So when you're pulling your LS apart, you better sure to back the pipe plug off the back side of the block and pull out what we refer to as the dog bone. And I think we see, as far as the cam plate for the LS, a lot of those go out the door also.
Absolutely. The problem you find with a lot of the plates out there in the marketplace now is they're not hard enough, and they will start wearing a groove right in the back of this cam plate. So if you don't know where your product's coming from, you will run into problems, and that's why we went with the best in the marketplace.
Now, one thing that we do at Straub Technologies, and available either from Silver Seal or Straub Technologies, this was a little deal that Robert Yates Racing came up with on the LS spec engine that they do for NASCAR. And what we do is we will ball mill grooves at clock positions of 12, 3, 6, and 9. And what this does, it stores oil there and keeps the wear down. These are available in a modified OEM plate with that oil groove. And today I hear that you can actually pull an LT motor apart, and GM has already done this. So they've learned their lesson, and now they're actually machining these plates at the factory and putting them in the LT motors. About head bolts and stuff. So we touched on that, being it's a little bit torque to yield, but talk about the GM bolt quality compared to a lot of the stuff that's the knockoff Chinese stuff that's coming in.
Yeah, GM's quality is second to none right now. There is a lot of head bolts out there in the marketplace. These are actually OE head bolts. GM's went with a torque to yield bolt because it is the best. It's going to give you the best quality fasten, I guess I should say.
Yeah, I agree with you, yes.
Because GM figured out with torque to yield bolts, you need half the size bolt than a Ford or a GM with twice the strength. You'd have to torque a Ford bolt to twice the foot-pounds as a GM bolt because they're non-torque to yield.
Okay. All right. Now, it's kind of interesting what you've done here with these swap kits, as you call them, that have got most of the fasteners that you would need for a camshaft swap. And being that the LS platform, the most popular modification to an LS is a cam swap. So can you tell us a little bit about the cam swap kit, Jeff?
We developed this cam swap kit to do 3 engines. And again, per customer's request. I would love one of these kits. You know, I need something to organize my bolts, so when I need something, I'm not running down to the dealership and grabbing it. So we came up with this kit with the help of Chris, with everything you need to do 3 LS engines.
So I see here you've actually got the OE part number, and you've actually got the foot-pounds and torque that you'll need.
Yep, we put all the torque specifications you need on there, so if you, instead of going to the book, you can go right to the chart here and it shows you everything you need on there.
So you've got another kit here which you just call the general hardware. So this is just a lot of just little knick-knack type stuff.
It's the stuff you forget about, stuff you need. We've got some of the camshaft sensors in here. We throw some of the steam pipe gaskets in there, connecting rod bolts, valve seals, water pump gaskets. You know, how many times do you guys replace these? All the time. Timing cover seals, keepers.
And one thing with the GM, at the temperature that it runs in extremely hot. It's almost at boiling. So a lot of these gaskets, after 100,000, 150,000 miles, when they're picking these things up in the junkyard, this stuff needs to be replaced. All of this can be found on Silver Seal's website or Straub Technologies' website. And speaking of gaskets, we keep the OEM gaskets that GM supplies on the motors and stuff. So these are in stock, and these are actually OEM part numbers that GM uses on the builds. We also keep the intake gaskets, the valve cover gaskets, the valley cover gaskets, the oil pan gaskets, and front timing cover and rear main cover type gaskets. Again, all of these are available at Silver Seal. I've got a little thing here I'd like talking about the off-gassing. So again, back to Robert Yates Racing. These guys have developed this spec engine for NASCAR, and one thing that they found was the amount of heat that the engines build up, that they would actually go into a thermal detonation. Well, when the LS was derived, one thing it had to meet was fuel economy and emissions. And one way that you solve emissions is that you keep a lot of heat in the combustion chamber for the catalytic converter to burn stuff up properly. So they limited the cooling around the combustion chambers. What Robert Yates figured out, with a slight modification to the head gasket with extra cooling holes and an off-gassing kit, and off-gassing at all four corners of the engine, it actually increased the RPM and gave better performance for the engine and had a lot less thermal issues with the engine overheating and stuff over time. So here's a NASCAR team that has modified the LS, and now you get to buy the product that they're using to give these engines maximum performance in the high performance industry.
Hey Chris, why don't you tell me some of the cool things you did to the rocker?
Well, with your all sourcing capability, what we did was we took the body of the OEM rocker and we have that rim finished. So that takes all the little imperfections and any surface area imperfections. It also polishes up the sled very nicely for the rocker. And then what we do is the bronze trunnion kit that we do for the OEM rockers, we go ahead and install that trunnion with our bronze bushing kit and trunnion, and then this is sold with the bolts and hardware as a complete kit. So we offer this as a lifetime guarantee when you're running our camshafts, and this rocker is good like any other OEM rocker to 640 lift. So these are available from Silver Seal or Straub Technologies, and if you need them, give us a shout. Tell us a little bit about covers and stuff, Jeff.
We got a full line of rear and front timing chain covers for the LS. You can get them loaded, unloaded, with sensor, without sensor. We've got the gears, chains.
The chain deal, that's one thing, because you've got the OEM gear, and I think the OEM chain is pretty good. But what happens is a lot of times people will want to use the OEM cam gear and the OEM crank sprocket gear, and what they'll want to do is use an Iowa's chain. So this is a single roller chain sold by many other companies and stuff. We stock this, and this chain made in Germany is the highest quality. So this chain we know runs in engines 7,500, 8,000 RPM on the stock cam gear and on the stock crank gear. What about valve springs?
For years, you've seen the blue spring out there, which GM has produced. GM's discontinued production of the blue spring as of a few months back.
And that spring was actually used in two venues. They used it on the circle track crate motors, the 602s and the 604s.
That's correct.
And it is the only accepted valve spring on those two forms of circle track racing.
That's correct.
And this was really the go-to valve spring for the LS market because they called it the LS6 spring.
Absolutely. If you see springs out there today, they're not real GM springs if somebody's selling a new blue spring, because they're gone. GM went to which we call the metallic or gold spring. It's really not gold, but they had a problem with them breaking, okay? And GM engineers realized that. And it's hard to tell here, and we'll do a close-up on that, but the actual grind on the springs are just a little bit different. Basically the same as the blue spring, but they've changed the grind on it because you were getting breakage on some of these blue springs over time.
And you said it's a gold spring, but I see it's got some white markings on it.
That's the white OEM marks it.
So that designates that it is actually a GM spring.
Absolutely.
And then I guess we need to talk about the elephant in the room, Delphi lifters.
We're getting there. I think the whole country knows about that one right now.
Yes. But we hope that the supply chain will be getting filled up here, but you've been shipping a lot. You've shipped a lot of Delphi lifters over the years.
Absolutely, tons.
And issue-wise with those,
I haven't had a labor claim.
And I don't think David Lewis down at Robert Yates will mind me saying this. That same lifter is what they run in the NASCAR spec motor. It is the approved lifter for NASCAR spec motor. Is the Delphi lifter. Well, I think we pretty much covered everything today. I mean, I appreciate your time coming down to Straub Technologies.
Appreciate you having us down here. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
What a day, what a day, what a day. Yeah, my brain is swollen. I've learned so much today. They told us, don't start cars. We are not going to listen.